Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Net Zero Nuclear Pavilion in the Green Zone here at COP28. My name is Jennifer Gordon, and I'm the director of the Atlantic Council's Nuclear Energy Policy Initiative. And I'm so delighted to be here with everyone, now that we are all here, talking about nuclear horizons or nuclear frontiers and focusing on new technologies, new countries, and new use cases. And it's really difficult to imagine a better group of people to talk about these subjects and to address these issues than this panel. So I'm really delighted to introduce our panelists for today. Dr. Stephen Yamoa, who is Executive Director of Nuclear Power Ghana. Stephen, a number of us who I think are here right now, including John and me, we were recently in Accra for the U.S.-Africa Nuclear Energy Summit. And I think I speak for everyone who was there when I say that we were all tremendously impressed by Ghana's readiness for a nuclear energy program. So for those who did not have the privilege of attending the summit, could you talk a little bit about why Ghana has assessed that nuclear energy could really become a crucial part of its energy mix?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for inviting me to this panel. I agree with you. The US-Africa Summit in Accra was very impressive and it made a lot of impact. And I hope it will continue going forward because it drums home the nuclear agenda in Africa. Ghana's nuclear actually has gone through stages. When we started in the early 60s with our first president, which was curtailed. And then in the late 80s and early 90s, when we started experiencing power shortages, there was a discussion of adding on. At the time, we were depending on our hydropower plant. And so there was a discussion between nuclear and thermals. Eventually, we opted to go with the thermals. And as we speak, we have over 65% dependent on thermal power plants. We have exhausted all our hydro potentials with very little unexploited hydro potential. Now, studies that we did in terms of projected demand into the future indicates a lot of demand going in from 2030 and beyond. And so where are we going to get our energy from? So we did a lot of analysis. In addition to that, as I mentioned, the thermals is over 65%. And considering the global effect, the decarbonization agenda, reducing the carbon footprint. So should we continue to depend on thermals? And in actual fact, in Ghana, when there are, world prices fluctuations with respect to the crude oil and gas, it affects us a lot. So within a year, you get tariff, changing 4 or 5 times within a year because we so much depend on the thermals. And then also the issue of security. We basically have hydro and thermals, and there's a need for us to expand our, energy base to have a more secure energy infrastructure so that their strengths and weaknesses will balance each other. And added on to that is also the fact that there is a real demand for power in terms of adding value to our raw materials. We have abundant raw materials, but the exploitation and added value to it has been very minimal because of high prices of electricity. So put all of this into the context, then we needed to take a decision as to how do we increase our baseload generation. I've talked about the hydro, which we don't have much potential going forward. And so looking at nuclear and coal as the potential additional base load to support the hydro, considering the environmental issues and all of that, a decision was taken in 2008 to reactivate our nuclear agenda. And through that, we have been able to, following through the IEA milestone approach, I've gone through successfully with phase 1, and currently we are in phase 2. And I believe most of the US companies probably are aware of the engagement that we are currently having with various vendors to be able to select a strategic partner that will, partner my organization to move to the project phase. So in a nutshell, these are the major considerations that influencing Ghana's decision to proceed on a nuclear power project.
Stephen, thank you so much for those insights into Ghana and the energy mix. And I think it's clear as we go to these different states, whether it's Wyoming or Alaska or Utah, each one has so many different use cases for nuclear reactors. And there's really, I think, a pull from the market rather than a technology push, because there's so much in demand. So, Stephen, my question to you is, as we kind of think through different applications, different use cases for reactors, what do you see as the demand pull from Ghana to build and to deploy nuclear reactors in Ghana?
As I said from the earlier submission, so there's a real need for power, electricity going forward. Even looking at base case scenarios in terms of demand, we're looking at 300 to 400 megawatts yearly additions. But then when you consider other developmental projects and so on, so it goes up. So in our case, advanced reactors obviously has a role to play. We believe that, personally, I believe that SMRs is the future of nuclear and will be significant contribution to Ghana's nuclear agenda. But we're looking at more of a grid-scale SMR, because in our case, it's not just adding on a technology to increase your electricity, but we're also looking at the industrial component of it. How does the nuclear, project, the nuclear industries galvanize and drive other industrial activities in the country? So that we're looking at it as a package of a project, not just that we need some extra power and therefore we're going for nuclear to add on to that. So putting all of that, the SMRs is one of our key targets. The large reactors are also there, I must say, but of course there are key challenges with respect to our grid. If you're going for large, looking at our grid size and all of that, that may call for additional investment to the grid transmission system. So in a nutshell, I would say, yes, the advanced reactors is a target going forward. And in our case, Ghana's case, and I believe probably with all the other African and developing countries, we're not pursuing nuclear agenda just as you need this amount of power, let's get it from nuclear, but as an industry that will drive other economic activities, to improve the socioeconomic well-being of our people. So that is our goal.
Stephen, thank you so much. And I am so sorry to say that we are unfortunately out of time. So everyone, please join me in thanking our panelists.